how are you going to talk about you're recording a documentary? Like,
Well,
what is this?
we started doing mini documentary things. Shannon came on and told you about her business,
Yes.
Remembrera,
Hmm.
and so I can't remember how the idea came about. If she was just talking to me about it and maybe I suggested, or if she suggested it, I don't know. All I know is now we're doing video mini documentary style things of people, business, you know, so helping people tell their story on
Yeah.
video or helping people tell their business's story. I'm going back to Portland here in about 2 weeks, exactly 2 weeks, to do a mini doc on the making of the album that I was that I produced over there with Ronnie.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, we're just doing all kinds of stuff, man. We're moving and shaking. We're
Mm.
yeah. you, you gave me the unimpressed shrug. You're just like,
When are you
eh.
not doing stuff? I mean, you're always doing
I know.
something different. I mean, it's like, tell me
Got some
something more impressive
ADHD.
than that, okay? It's like,
Sorry. I've been recording a song a day for the past
whoa,
5 days.
jeez,
Um, and it's kind of a soundtrack to the play I'm directing, which
oh
goes up
boy,
on the 21st. It's
it's gonna
crazy. It's
make it.
all,
Actually, we're gonna
it's
make.
by the skin of our teeth, my friend. I mean, even today we're going through stuff. So the main plot of this play, it's Night Mother for those listening, is one evening a grown daughter, she's 35, 45, somewhere in there, just tells her mother just all of a sudden, I'm I'm gonna kill myself.
Hmm.
And the rest of the play is, just what follows this announcement. And what's crazy is our producer, her brother just committed suicide like 4 or 5 days ago.
Whoa,
Their mother found their brother's body like in his car or something.
jeez, man.
I think it was drug overdose or something.
Hmm.
He'd been struggling, been in and out of rehab. Anyway, but it's just such a heavy topic, and it's hit everybody is either directly or indirectly affected by suicide.
Yeah,
And this play is just it's incredibly poignant, and but the idea that this play almost hasn't gone on because of suicide.
yeah, yeah.
you
Wow,
know
jeez, man.
I mean, it's I don't know, I guess it's just theater at its finest.
I feel like turmoil just follows all of your theater productions. I just either don't make it to the opening night, or they're just
Yeah, I
massive
mean,
re-edits. Like,
what's so funny is that I feel like I'm so um what's the word I'm looking for? Um I'm just really chill, man. I
right,
mean,
that's what doesn't make
I,
sense.
and
Like,
so there are certain things that, have gone on, within the parameters of the play and things like that that I didn't agree, I don't agree with or whatever.
yeah,
But just compromise is the name of the game, because at the end of the day, it's like we're putting on an amazing show. Our actors are incredible. They're doing an incredible job. My co-director is incredible, and the set looks amazing. We built the
yeah.
set the other weekend, and I mean, it's just everything is going so well. And so it's amazing to me that at several moments throughout the production of this play that it almost didn't happen.
Right. It's every play almost. I'm telling you. Should be named Almost Didn't Happen.
Yeah. Oh man, that'll be my autobiography.
It almost didn't happen. Yeah.
A life that almost didn't happen. People will think that I had some near-death experiences. I'm like,
No.
no, no, no. I just failed a lot. just
Just failed a
just a
lot.
lot of failure.
Just a lot of failure in life. Well, if I remember last time we chatted, and again, audience, it's my fault that we haven't
Yeah.
talked come to in a while. I moved, I have a lot going on, a lot of crazy things, good
You're
things.
teaching now?
I'm teaching, I'm influencing the young minds of America.
This is
This is
dangerous.
very
This is
dangerous. It's
dangerous.
a dangerous mind. Instead of Michelle Pfeiffer, it's me
Yeah,
for, for that. But I believe we're going to talk about messianic figures in movies, kind of this whole
we were,
concept.
and I've been pondering it ever
I
since
have
then.
too. It
And
feels like it just comes up regularly as I
yeah,
think about things. So it'd be good to kick off a little bit about that. We were talking about Superman, if I remember how much you despise the the Man of Steel.
yeah, and all the. I mean, you know, I'm I do theater. I'm all for theatricality and everything.
Yes.
But I do also appreciate subtlety.
Mm.
And Man of Steel is the absolute opposite of subtlety. And there's a time for that too. I'm not saying
Mm.
that, you always have to be subtle or anything like that. But, I always just imagine a director like a Zack Snyder thinking, oh man, this is so clever. It's like, no, that's the most obvious choice. No, you made the most obvious choice
Yeah.
and you thought it was clever. And that's when I get bogged down by those things
Yeah.
as I'm
Yeah.
watching. Um, I had somebody else tell me that I've ruined play watching for the, and I was
No,
laughed because I
Simon,
I
come
thought of
on.
you because I was like I ruined everything for everybody.
Another classic line and ruined everything for everybody. The name of your book, it could be.
It could be. Oh man,
I swear I'm a chill guy, but I ruined everything for everyone.
I swear. Oh golly. I mean, I do have opinions, but
Oh, we
I'm
know
just
that.
yeah.
If that wasn't evident on this show, I
Oh,
don't know.
I just
It's like the most, that's an obvious statement.
oh man.
No nuance in that hot take.
No, no, no. That was the opposite of a hot take right there, you know.
The obvious take is the one you take. I do have opinions, you know. Oh, yes, new information today. Like,
Well, I just mean to say, I think I can have opinions and still be nice,
yes.
but some people think I'm a real a-hole. I'll give you an example, okay?
Okay. All right.
I was talking to a group of people about a certain production that recently went on, and at the beginning of that play, you find out that they're in a play, like these are actors in a play.
Okay.
And when I realized that, I thought, oh, they're pretending to be bad actors. And then the play went on. I was like, nope, not pretending.
Just bad.
Just awful. Some of the worst acting I've seen on stage, like here locally. I mean, from adults, I'm sure you can say in high school, junior high, or whatever, you've seen worse acting, but by adults, who've been purposefully cast in a play. It's like you did this to yourself, director. Um, but yeah, it was awful. It was a comedy. It did not even smile once.
Mm,
I didn't even, Rainbow was with me. At
okay.
intermission, I turned to Rainbow and I asked her, have you laughed yet? She said, no.
Mm.
At the end of the play, I turned to her, I asked her, did you ever smile during this play? She said, a couple of times at the things you said during the play.
I imagine you're in the back wearing a beret, like with a really long cigarette. Just like, this is terrible. Everything is horrible. I'm watching.
Oh, so after that experience, I decided I need to have more fun at these things because I have to
Mm.
go to these things because I'm on this awards committee.
Yeah.
So the next play I went to, I took a gummy beforehand.
I love it.
and and I had a great time.
Of course you
I had a
did.
great time. I was cracking up the whole time. I was there with another person on the committee, and she was entertained by me. She was like, "Well, I wasn't entertained by the play, but I was entertained by you."
Well, yes, beautiful.
Yeah, and I wasn't even like super high or anything like that.
Yeah, just enough.
I was just didn't take it seriously. You know, I
I mean,
just
how could
was
you?
able to just look at the terrible stuff that was going on. And man, oh gosh, I should tell you this because and then we'll get back to the topic at hand.
Yeah,
We were sitting in the balcony. I had never sat in the balcony of that theater before, but it was just the two of us, this other person and myself, and I knew this, but I'd forgotten, and just being up there made it all too real because the balcony, this is an old theater,
yeah.
and it was for the black people.
Oh,
This
really?
was a segregated theater. They had a
Jeez,
separate
man.
entrance for black people. That entrance still exists. They're not making
Yeah.
black people use it,
You
but
sure about
you
that?
know, yeah, I don't know. But it's so fun because in the balcony, like you have less foot room. The seats
Yeah,
are smaller. I mean, it's just like exactly what you would expect
yeah,
from segregation. It's like, well, you know, we don't need to give them as much room. That's the black.
yeah.
I mean,
Right,
it was
right. Terrible stuff, man.
just terrible. And but it was fun to sit up there and be like,
Yeah,
yeah, we're the segregated, and because there was no one else up there, I just got to just make all the jokes I wanted during the
yeah,
play and
yeah.
just be ridiculous and clap for way too long and all that kind of stuff, you know.
Simon, I swear. This is typical stuff with you. I'm a chill guy.
Yeah. All right, so back to messianic figures in movies.
Yes.
So do you have a movie that involves a messianic figure that you're just like is one of your favorite movies that you're just like, man, this is
Uh,
the best?
well, I just, I really, not that this person is like an amazing actor, like but they're in a lot of big movies. But like, I mean, I think The Matrix is very much into the whole messianic figure.
Oh
The
yeah, the
one,
one. The moment you
Neo,
say the one,
the
you
one,
know.
you become this messianic figure. And I just, and continuing with the Man of Steel, Superman, that clearly has that feeling. This Superman's what, 33 or something like that. It's just like it
Yeah.
has this very biblical aspect to that. But I always think like Neo in a very different way. It's like this is the one. This is you're gonna see reality. This person's gonna wake up the world. There's a lot of
Yeah.
spiritual symbolism in the Matrix, hidden behind a lot of crazy graphics for the time, especially.
Yeah.
I have to say I hated Matrix Resurrections, whatever the newest one. I just hated it. I just
I
found
didn't
it.
even
I
bother
just
watching it.
Simon,
I'm serious. I saw the trailer.
it's with you in the
I heard a
trailers,
couple
man.
people talking about it, and I was just like, nope.
It was bad. I'm just saying. I think it was bad, but the original ones were pretty groundbreaking when they came out, especially because of the technology with it. It was like the Wachowski brothers, or I think one of them transitions. I can't remember, but
I think maybe both of them
both of
did.
them maybe. Okay,
Maybe.
so I
Yeah.
want to be, I want to make sure I'm saying it right. But they, it was a groundbreaking thing, but there was a huge amount of messianic kind of messaging within that. That's kind of the most current thing that I think
Yeah.
about with it.
Yeah, and it has I mean, he sacrifices himself in the end,
Yeah,
you know all the stuff. It does all the messianic stuff. I hated chapter 2 of that,
yeah.
the second Matrix movie.
Matrix Reloaded. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was just garbage. I didn't feel any stakes in it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I wasn't worried if Keanu Reeves was going to win a fight,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
The Matrix 3,
I wasn't
I
into it,
just
honestly.
yeah, I was really bored. most of the time.
I know you were. I could tell.
So here's always my problem. Okay. I look at these stories and I think, why isn't this movie just about Morpheus?
Mm,
Morpheus searching for the one, finds the one, but then the one actually dies and he has to carry on without. I mean, that's so much more interesting
yeah.
because when you think about that's what happened originally in Christianity.
Right.
You had a Messiah who's supposed to liberate the Jewish people from Rome and all their other enemies, and he dies.
Right.
And he says BRB, but it's over 2000
yeah.
or almost 2000 years
Yeah.
later, not back yet.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that? I think that's one of the beautiful things if you allow it to be that in
Yeah.
Christianity and in Judaism, because still waiting for a Messiah, a
Yeah.
very different Messiah with a very different idea than Jesus. But what do you do when your Messiah? Because the Jewish people they endured that several times.
Yeah. That's right.
About 40 years after Jesus, another guy rises up, says, I'm the Messiah. He takes upon himself the title of Messiah to lead the Jewish people in revolt against Rome. Fails, dies,
Yeah.
the whole bit. And, it's like, to me, that story is so much more interesting than The Matrix, where Keanu Reeves actually is the one.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
he's only the one because the movie says he is.
True.
And that's another thing that really bothers me.
Mm.
I don't like that kind of fatalism when it comes to messianic figures. I don't like that they are the one just because they're the one. There's no other reason.
Right. Like he's some
It's
computer
like,
programmer, hacker guy. Like
yeah,
it's like you. He's the guy. Why? Well,
he's the
I don't
guy.
know. I'm not really sure. It's like,
He's really special. He can be able to do all these things. Why? Why? I don't.
yeah.
I mean, I gave a talk when my son was leaving on his mission, and I talked about the virgin birth and how I don't like it as part of the
Yeah.
Jesus story. I think
Right.
it's personally, I think it's made up. I think it's one of
Yeah.
the parts of the Jesus story that's completely fictitious. And of course, 99% of Christians, want me crucified for saying that, but I think it's a fictitious part of the story, and I think it's completely irrelevant,
hmm
and I think that it takes away from the specialness of Jesus. And this is what I argued in my little talk. I said, if Jesus is a demigod, why is he special? Well, that doesn't, he's not, why
Yeah.
should I think he's special? It's like Superman. If he is just automatically endowed with these powers, he doesn't have to do anything except stand in the sun.
right. He's like a solar powered. You know. By the way, this is a
Then,
much better take than I have opinions. Okay, I just want you to know. Like-
yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so the only thing that can make Jesus or Superman special now is what they do with those
Mm,
powers.
right.
And of course that can make, Keanu Reeves in The Matrix special, decide on what he does with his powers. But just from a storytelling perspective, it's much more interesting to me from the ground. Like what does Peter do
Yeah.
when Jesus is dead now and he doesn't come back?
Right.
What does Morpheus do if Neo dies at the end of the first movie? Like and how do they keep going?
Yeah.
But
But what's the fascination with Hollywood and messianic figures in all different forms of movies? Like, I mean, growing up, we see this throughout us aging. It keeps coming back. It's a theme. I wonder why we keep going back to that. What's the fascination of it?
I think it's a Jesus take the wheel
Hmm.
scenario. Personally, that's what I that to me that is the attraction of a messianic figure where or a God in general is the comfort of being able to say, I can't handle this, but they can.
Mm.
And I can shrug off my woes and my cares and ills and say, Jesus is going to take care of this. Superman's
Yeah.
going to save me,
The
you
world
know?
needs a hero, like kind of thing,
Yeah.
you know.
Um, I don't need that in my life. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't feel the need for that in my life. In fact, I consciously reject that because in order for me to grow as an individual, I can't just shrug off all my shortcomings on God onto God. You know,
Yeah.
I can't just like put all that in their lap.
Yeah.
So I'm adamantly against the idea of Jesus take the wheel. I
Yeah.
was like, no, 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 no. Give me that wheel back. I've got to learn how to drive.
Most definitely. And I think it's almost this happens a lot though, I think, um in writing this line, um in belief is this kind of like what I'm doing versus let me just put this all over here. God's going to take care of this. God's going to fix me. Jesus is going to fix me. Like, this is like a two-part story, right? Like this isn't just like a prosperity situation. Like I'm a good person, I believe. I'm going to be wealthy. Like, oh boy. That just I see. Man, that blanked out. That was weird.
Yeah, it did. That was
Well,
weird.
you
And
didn't
it
want to hear
just
what I have
popped
to
back
say,
up.
Simon. Just say it.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
just hanging up.
Say hanging up on me. That's fine. What I was saying is like a two-part situation, and it's like this. I get into this too with people. It's like it can't be like I'm just going to put everything here and then I'll just see what happens. I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm just going to put a bunch of money on nine and see what goes here. I mean, it's just not like that. Usually doesn't work out well either. It's like, oh,
For
Simon, here we go.
am I here?
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No. Yeah.
Um, I was just talking to my wife Shannon about this the other day because she had auditioned for something, and she's hanging out with other people who had auditioned for the same role and everything, and
Yeah.
or different roles and stuff like that, and a lot of them are saying, well, I did my best now. If God wills it, I
Yeah.
guess I'll get the part, and if he doesn't will it, then I won't. And I was like,
And I have
and
trouble
I
with
just want
that.
to turn, yeah, I just want to turn to everybody and be like, God doesn't give a shit.
I have a lot of trouble with that, man. It's very conflicting for me.
Seriously, you know, I think God cares about your character. I think God cares about doing your best with what you have. And beyond that, God doesn't care if you're a garbage man or a Wall Street,
Yeah.
investor. He doesn't care if you're in the ensemble or a lead role in a production. God doesn't care.
Yeah.
God doesn't care at all. So why would it be their will? I
It's the
just
typical thing, right? With athletes. I always like this always made me cringe. It's like, oh, by the grace of God, we won that game. I'm like, I'm not sure God had anything to do with that. I'm like, because I
so
don't
by
think
the
that's
by the
like
grace of God,
why.
the other team
Like
lost.
lost, like so you were supposed to
So
win and they were supposed to lose. For what reason? Like,
that's that Old Testament tribalism,
yeah.
which has always been prevalent since
Hmm.
the introduction of religion.
Yeah.
My God's better than your God. Oh, and the way that the Israelites thought in the Old Testament is not unique to them. The followers of other gods, Baal, Marduk, and things like that, they
Yeah.
also felt like if they were successful, their God was pleased with them, and if they were beaten by their enemies, then they had somehow offended their gods.
Right.
And it was like, what an abusive way to live.
No.
I mean, what an absolute. And so Job comes along and tries to teach us a better way. Ecclesiastes comes along and
Yes.
tries to teach us a better way. And says, actually, the race doesn't always go to the swift.
Yeah.
Actually, the sun rises on the good and the bad. So just knock all that nonsense out of your head about God's will, God blessing you because you did this or that or the other. I'm sorry. I'm just, I mean, from a completely pragmatic point of view, just look around and you can see that people doing bad things are often very successful and people doing good things are often not successful and vice
Yeah.
versa. It's just, it just has nothing to do with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I know. It's just like it's just like, I just so like, I get so cringed about it. I see it all the time still. That vein is still pumping very strong. And I'm just like, okay, let's have a like honest discussion about this. And like, why would the God of the universe care about the outcome of the Jets versus the Bills? It's like,
Just
I mean,
doesn't.
it's like
It
busy doing
just
other
doesn't.
shit, man. Like,
Exactly. I mean, come on now. I mean,
you know,
honestly, if God were involved in those kinds of things, I'd be really disappointed.
it would be disappointing. Yeah.
I would just be like, so God is a respecter of persons. God does have favorites, and God doesn't love
Yeah.
everyone equally, and
Yeah.
so on and so forth.
Yeah.
That was a lot of my argument about Jesus. And just saying, I was arguing for a more human Jesus because that Jesus doesn't get to cheat.
Yeah.
So if that Jesus performs a miracle, it would be like you or I performing that miracle, and that is very impressive.
Mm.
Uh, so, you know, I mean, what's more impressive, Jesus walking on water or Peter walking on water?
Mm.
I mean, I
Interesting.
know Peter sank,
Yeah.
but infinitesimally more is impressive is Peter walking on water
Mm.
than Jesus. If you don't think Jesus was 100% human,
Right.
if you think he was basically a demigod. So anyway, that's a lot of my problem with these messianic stories because there's
Yeah.
only this one person who can do it. Why? Because they were born. That goes back to that whole royalty thing. It's
Yeah,
like I'm king
exactly.
because I was born. I didn't have
Yeah.
to, or whatever. It's like I
There's
don't
no
like any of
criteria
that.
beyond being birthed into it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yes,
okay.
exactly.
This is actually very actually I was thinking about another one is just um I'm not sure if you watch this, but the series Foundation, very classic
I haven't
Isaac
watched that one.
Asimov. It's actually really good. The first season, the second season, excellent. But it's the crux of it is this genetic dynasty
Mm,
that rules over the entire galaxy, and it's just this figure that rules over them all, the one to rule them all. In the Lord of Rings,
yeah, The Ring.
the ring is the messianic figure, and it's
Yep.
like it's just like we have this obsession with it, and it's funny how it's presented in movies over time, but I think it's uncomfortable for us to question how this is presented or the nuances. I think that's where you and I live in this whole discussion. We're able to hold several thoughts at the same time,
Yeah.
and that's what I think is the struggle with this topic is not being able to hold several thoughts. I'll give you a good example. So much like you've shared about your children's journey with spirituality, religion, different, your kids have different ideas and
Hmm.
stuff. My daughter's 12 and she's starting to have these different ideas. And she's very strongly against churches that are against LGBTQ people,
Good for her.
patriarchy stuff. Like she's 12. She's already on to this. And she's like, I will not be a part of that. And I said, good. And we started talking about it.
Yeah.
And I think this idea, if we talked about this maybe with our parents, I mean our parents, our generation's parents, this would be a non-starter. This would be a sacrilegious conversation. How
Yep.
could you say this? And in my mind, this is amazing. This is literally, we're holding all these thoughts of belief and criticism at the same time. That's progress to me.
The Gospels are written in such a way that there's so much ambiguity, and so you can kind of choose your own adventure sometimes.
Yeah.
You can kind of make up what you so to give you an example, I was having this conversation with talking about, the older generation. I was talking to somebody about these kinds of things, and I said, I mean, there's an idea, that floats around that when Jesus told Peter that he would deny him thrice before
Yeah.
the cock crew, that was an instruction, so that Peter would not be roped in and also tried and crucified. And in that same spirit, when Judas betrays Jesus, you can also read that as an instruction. Jesus knows what Judas is going to do. He tells him to go do it. He doesn't try to talk him out of it. He doesn't
Right.
try to tell him, "Hey, if you do this, whatever." He just says, "You're going to go do it. Now go do it." And so that once again might have been an instruction. And this person was so offended by that.
Hmm.
And they were just like, well, why would if Jesus had instructed him to do it, then why was Judas so upset and he killed himself? And I said, well, PTSD. He did what he was supposed to do, just like a soldier does when they go to war, but you're still scarred from it.
Yeah.
And they were so offended by this. They were just like, Jesus would never do that. It's like, well, God tells people to kill people all the time in
It's true,
the Old
actually. Yeah.
Testament. I mean, look at the story of Job once again, where God
Yes.
either gives Satan permission or literally does it himself. Because at the end of the book of Job, it's very clear that Job's friends come to comfort Job for the things that God, Yahweh, has
Yeah.
done to him. Doesn't say that Satan has done to him,
Right.
what God has done to Job. So talk about PTSD. Job, yeah, I mean, he gets a new family. That doesn't replace your old family.
No,
Having another child doesn't replace the child
this
you
isn't a
lost.
toy. I mean, geez.
Yeah, exactly. So, to say that God or Jesus wouldn't do that to somebody, it's like, well, I mean, I'm reading the same book you're reading. I don't
Yeah.
know what you're getting out of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. There's just such a big fear of like, see, this is the whole kind of singular mindset is like, well, if I give a little bit of what Simon's saying some credence, will this dismantle my belief? And I'm of the mindset it will just give you more clarity about your belief in some way or another. It just but people want to have the certainty of the singular mindset. This is how it is. We're not going to like these people. We're not going to like these things. We're against this because it's cut and dry. It's black and
Yeah,
white. And they
this is
want
how
you.
I was
This
raised.
is how I was raised. You like my daughter and I was again. I love her so much. She was great. She was just like I noticed like when you grow up with your parents' religion and stuff. I'm like I can't believe she's saying this. Like I never thought about this stuff when I was her age.
I didn't think
You
about
know,
it at
but
all.
it's information. They have so much more information. They're talking about it. And I said, yeah, that's generally what happened. You got to make a decision for yourself. And that's going to require a lot of nuance and search and understanding. And so we started talking about Jesus and stuff like that. And it was like, I was like, man, I wish I had these conversations, you know?
Yeah. Um, Talking about messianic figures, somebody recently was saying that they didn't like Luke Skywalker because he was, something like that. And I was like, no, he
Yeah.
wasn't.
No, I don't think so.
No, he wasn't. No, the guy was a complete chump when Obi-Wan found him. He couldn't do anything right. He had to be trained. He had to earn it. He wasn't
Yeah.
just special. Yeah, he was a Skywalker, so maybe he was force sensitive or something.
Yeah.
But um, he had to endure the training and go through
Yeah.
it, and he had to lots of mistakes along the way. And ultimately, what I'm reminded of here is that he has to face his father.
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful story in that way. I've talked about this on my own podcast
Yeah.
about how each of us have to, at some point, face our parents the way Luke faces Darth Vader, and and we have to decide how much of our parents we're going to be and how much of our parents we're not
Mm.
going to be.
Mm.
And the the mission of every child should be the redemption of the parent,
Mm,
because the parent should be a lesser version of the child. The child should be better than the parent. I'm just saying that in an ideal situation.
I love this. Where you're going with this, by the way. This is awesome, man.
In an ideal situation, each generation gets better because they learn from the mistakes of the previous generation. So the child redeems the parent. That's why I'm so against cancel culture. Stop
Yeah.
canceling the past and redeem it.
Mm,
Redeem the past. Say this is what they got right. This is what they got wrong. I'm standing on their shoulders, and I will be their redemption because they brought me up to be the better generation.
yeah. I mean, just I was like, this is a great take. Again, better than I have opinions. Okay, let's just forget that. I won't say that again anymore. But it makes me think of like in between this kind of month that we haven't had our regular episode. My daughter had her birthday, and we went to Las Vegas, and we surprised her with going to RuPaul's Drag Race in Vegas.
Oh, amazing.
Then okay, now this is like talk about mishmashing everything that we're taught: religion, spirituality,
Yeah.
drag race, and near where you live and you're a part of the world. This is a non-starter. This is
This
this is
is
the sin
people
of the
trying to
highest
outlaw it.
order. Yeah,
People, yeah.
right. And my daughter's been into this literally forever. Since she was 3, she watched the show. These are her athletes. These are her people.
Oh,
I
awesome.
mean, so we got a video of her like being super surprised. She's just like, "Oh my gosh, I get to see it in real life in person." And it was like one of the best shows I've ever seen. Ever seen. And there was a lot of commentary and stuff, but what was beautiful in there is I saw old white guys in there watching it.
Yeah.
I saw 13-year-olds in there. I saw middle-aged people. It was like a huge demographic of people with that. But it just reminded me of kind of like this take on just like, hey, I'm trying to do something maybe my parents would have never even thought to do with me.
Mm,
Or would they have been a prisoner of their time and go, we just can't do that because this is the 80s,
yeah.
we can't, maybe they just, I don't know, but I told them about it. And they didn't say anything bad. I could just tell they didn't want to say anything kind of about it.
Mm-hmm.
But they definitely, I think, more accepting of it. But you can tell, like I told a lot of people, and some people were like very surprised I was doing it.
Mm,
And I have several friends who are Republicans, and they're kind of like they're leaning hard. They're not in the MAGA lane, but they've kind of been touching it here and there.
yeah.
They're like, "Really, you're doing that?" I was like, "Yeah, I love my daughter. I want to do things she's very into, positive." And they go, well, "I probably do it too." I'm like, "What's the big deal? Like,
Exactly. What is the
why do
big
you
deal?
care so much about this?" I'm like,
Oh man, I mean, of all the things to care about, if somebody wears the other gender's designated clothing, I mean,
exactly.
it's just
I
the
know.
most idiotic thing to care about.
Right. To try to have legislation to stop it. And I mean, this is crazy. Like this is like crazy. Like in Tennessee and all these places, it's like, let's just stop drag queen hour. Like, dude, it's entertainment. It's like,
Exactly. I mean, these people just need a life. Honestly, these people just need a life. They need to read a book.
something.
they need something. They need some kind of culture in their life because if this is the thing that you care about, then your life is an empty shell. I'm sorry.
Yes.
It just is. If your life is centered around controlling somebody else because of the clothes they wear,
Yeah.
you have a pathetic worldview.
Completely. And it feels like a lot of it, I could be very wrong about this. It's just, this gets back to it, this kind of messianic language. And it's always cloaked in religion. Like, well, we're doing this because this is what it says in the Bible. This is wrong. Really? I mean,
Show
show
me
me
where
where
it talks
drag
about
racing,
drag racing is in the
like,
Bible.
or this whole difference. I can't hold these thoughts in my mind that the Bible says this what's happening. I'm like, well, just take it back. Like, there's no critical thinking involved in this at all. It's
Have
just
I have,
blind leadership towards one thing, like.
Have I given you my queer take on the Garden of Eden?
No,
Okay, are you ready? I
I'm ready.
I
I'm
walked
ready for
up to
this.
a Methodist pastor the other week, and I said, "Hey, I think Adam was gay."
You just do stuff, man.
It's just like, and he's like, "What? Why?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, he had no interest of having any kind of sexual relation with Eve. She had to be the one to do things." Now, I'm thinking about two perfect beings that God
Yeah,
just created. God created. So Eve must have been immaculate. Like, think of the
for
most beautiful
sure.
woman you can imagine, and then think of somebody even more beautiful.
Right.
That must have been Eve because God just made her perfect.
Yeah.
And Adam doesn't want that. Dude was gay. And then I said, and now go to the Bible and prove me wrong. And you can't. That's another one of those things where you can't go to the Bible and prove that Adam wasn't gay. You can't prove he was gay either. But
Right,
that's just the
sure.
funny thing about it, where it's just like I can have this idea. It sounds ludicrous to somebody else who,
Yeah,
and this particular Methodist pastor that I was talking to, they're pro LGBTQ
sure.
plus, by the way. They're
Yeah.
they're a progressive minded individual, and the Methodist Church just had a big split over that whole
Right.
question, and
Yes.
he was on the side of the Bible doesn't say anything about the evils of LGBTQ plus
Oh,
anything, and he wrote several papers to argue this, and so I knew he would enjoy this
yeah.
this take on it,
Simon.
and
This is, let me tell you, this is in step with Jesus the bastard.
yeah,
All right. In step with Simon teaching Isaiah.
yeah,
And now we have the queer Garden of Eden. This is in
queer
line.
Adam,
This
queer
is in
Adam,
line with
yeah,
Simon's. This isn't like some weird take. It may sound weird. This is like in line with
yeah.
Simonology.
I mean, I just love stuff like that because, when so many conservative Christians are like
Yeah.
hinging their entire existence on this thing, and then I go and I say, go to the Bible and prove to me Adam wasn't gay. And then they can't. I was like,
Right.
I think this whole thing just blew up in your face.
Right.
Because I let me go down the line. Let me just figure. Jesus never has a relation with a woman. He never gets married or anything.
Yeah.
All of his best friends are girls, though. That sounds
Yeah.
kind of like the gay best friend to me. It really does. It kind of does. You know.
Simon is, these are some tremendous takes. I'm telling you. But again, in alignment with this whole Simon situation here. It's like,
I am not arguing for a gay Jesus, but I'm also saying you can't prove he wasn't.
right. It's the same thing that I just don't think there's a gender based relation for God. Like this kind of like God of the universe. Why is it a dude? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. Why is gender even an issue when it comes to God? It just seems like it would be frivolous, honestly.
Zeus seemed to have it all figured out. He would transform into all kinds
Right.
of things,
Right. I mean,
to
he was all
have
about
all,
the
yeah.
bukkake and all this.
So,
Like,
yeah.
he was like, dirty parties, man.
So,
It's like, it was a bacchanal type of guy,
yeah.
It's
I'm
like,
just saying, like, if you have the power to do anything, why wouldn't you do anything?
it's like,
That's what I'm saying.
that's one of the most human things ever. It's
Yeah.
like, if you could buy a yacht, you probably
Yeah.
would. It's like,
And I'm not saying do anything that would hurt anybody, and that's where Zeus goes astray because he's
right, of
constantly
course.
hurting people with his actions. But if you're an all-powerful being and you want to spend the day as a dove or you want to spend the day as a fish, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, the ancient polytheistic gods would do this all the time,
Right.
and it was only, you know, um, Yahweh and then the God of Christianity. I mean, these are all, as far as history goes and the history of religion, these are all very modern ideas of
Yeah.
having somebody who doesn't appear, in these transformed
Right.
states and things like that.
I mean, this
Um,
is just very, you're right. I mean, there's you always bring really interesting things that make me think about this. And then I wanted to bring up, I don't want to forget this because again, I think this loops into whole Messianic figures and maybe somewhat of this crumbling of ideas by Jesus, not by, but I think some people have just gone way over the board. So maybe you've heard of that. There are some conservative pastors who now believe that the teachings of Jesus are no longer relevant. They are weak. These are these are liberal ideas of turning the other cheek. Have you heard of this?
I mean, in their defense, they're right. I mean, you can't espouse the modern Republican Party as it stands right now
Right.
and espouse Jesus and
Correct.
Jesus's teachings at the same time.
Right.
I mean, if you can, then you have to recognize that they're in conflict with each other. If you don't
Right.
recognize that they're in conflict with each other, then you're ignorant to something, either the political party you're a part of or the religion you're a part of.
Right.
So, in these conservative pastors' defense, they are they realize that their political movement is in conflict with the Jesus of the New Testament.
Right.
So I guess I pat them on the back for saying, yeah, you should reject Jesus because you definitely are not following him.
That's definitely not. So then that becomes like, well, what are you actually doing then?
Yeah. Well, why are you calling yourself Christian?
Right. What is it then? Then what would this be then? Like,
Yeah. I mean, you should be like Jewish or something, I guess. I mean, I don't think their political views really go along with Judaism either, but I'm just
right.
saying if you're going to reject Jesus and go back to a more militant
Right.
view, a more eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth view of the world, um, and the Jewish people, their God is Yahweh. They refer to Yahweh as Hashem because
Yeah.
it's a more respectful way of saying Lord. And Hashem in the Old Testament is actually quite merciful a lot, and the Jewish people viewed Hashem as a very merciful God. But it was a different culture, so we wouldn't have considered. I don't think by modern standards, Hashem is not the most
Yeah.
benevolent being. Um, but but there's a strong argument to say, the Hashem of the Old Testament is every bit as benevolent as Jesus of the New Testament if you read the right passages in the right way and you
Sure.
ignore some other passages.
Sounds like cherry picking.
Yeah. Well, and we're stuck having to cherry pick Jesus too, because there's a lot that Jesus is accredited to have said in the Gospels, that, and especially in something like Revelations, where it's just like, yeah, I just
No.
don't think Jesus said that. I very recently had this argument with somebody. I said, at the end of, I think, Matthew, Jesus says to his disciples, go and teach and baptize, and those who believe will be saved, and those who do not believe will be condemned. But is this the same Jesus that, frankly forgave sinners?
Right.
Is this the same Jesus who, when the woman was brought to him in adultery, he said, neither do I condemn
Neither do
you?
I condemn. Exactly.
She didn't say that she believed in him. She didn't say that she knew who the heck he was. She didn't say anything about believing that he had the authority or the power to forgive sin. But he just simply, frankly told her, neither do I condemn. So these things don't line up,
Right.
And so there's a lot in the New Testament where Jesus is saying things that we have to use some kind of reason
Yeah.
and say, okay, these things are not congruent. So which Jesus are we going to choose?
Mm. Well, that's currently what's happening is what Jesus in a conservative version of it. This is this is a kick-ass Jesus. This is a guy
Yeah.
who, for a lack of a better term, he fucks people up, man. Like he's John Wick. He's literally John
He's
Wick. He's
They're
William
only reading
Wallace.
about Jesus turning the tables at the temple, and
Yeah, yeah. Like
yeah,
he's kicking shit over, man. You
that's
know,
the
he's
basis of their church. I
he
love it.
literally is like he pulled a sword or something. That's what they said. I'm like, what? I was like, I was like, it's just a guy who's like really pissed off, and he's like John Wayne. He's Roy Rogers or something. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's just like he's
SNL did a parody of this, I think. They
right.
did like Jesus Part 2, and he's back and he's like taking revenge on Pontius Pilate and stuff, you
Right,
know?
right. He's
It's
John
like
Wick, man. It's literally they literally got it from John Wick. It's like they took his dog and now he's pissed. It's like he's
yeah,
and it's like this is like I don't know. It just seems like why would you want a spiteful person to be leading you? Like just like I'm just pissed off all the
because you're
time.
a spiteful person.
That's true, right? It's kind of the misery loves company complex, right?
Yeah.
It's like I don't want your tenderness. I don't want your kindness. That even sounds weird saying that. It's like it's just crazy. It actually sounds really strange.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
but
these are people who want to live in an authoritarian society
exactly.
where they have control because they believe they have the moral high ground. They do not want to live in a democratic republic
Yeah.
where our government is supposed to represent everyone who lives here and is supposed to fight for the equality of everyone, no matter what they believe or what party they espouse. Um, and it's a return to things like McCarthyism.
Right.
And a lot of people, it's shocking because you and I know how bad McCarthyism
Exactly.
was. So it's shocking to find people who want that back, who
Right.
want witch hunts. Like that's what they want. That's the world
Right.
they want to live in, where you hunt people down because they think communism has some good points.
Right.
you know?
But then also call other people fascists, Marxists, but don't even know what those words mean actually.
No,
I
that
guarantee most people who say this and don't even know what it is. And they're actually fighting for that thing that they're talking against. I'm like, no, that's what you want.
whenever somebody talks about these things and they're like calling someone else a I always ask them to define it
yeah.
in
It's
in a
over
really
after
polite
that.
way. I was like,
Right.
I don't know if I understand Marxism. Can you explain it to me?
Right.
And then they can't either.
It's over. Yeah. It's kind of like when someone it's a hot button word. It's like, oh, these socialists. I'm like, okay, tell me about socialism. I would love to know from what you think it is. You know, it kind of exists in America anyways already on some level. I don't know why you're
Yeah.
saying we shouldn't have we what are you talking about? Like
I always say, does your child go to a public school?
exactly.
Do you drive down a road that is, built by the government and, your local municipality and then kept up by your local
Yeah.
by your tax money and things like we have socialism in all aspects of
Right.
our life. And I
Literally.
understand I am a kind of a small government guy
Yeah, same
because
here.
that was one of the things growing up and being young that I thought was a tenet of republicanism. And growing up in a conservative home and being a Republican until I was 22 when I became an independent, I thought those were the things. I
Yeah.
thought, get government out of your life, get government out of your business, get government out of um, but what's funny, both sides want that until they don't get what they want, and then they
Right.
want the government to step in. You know, they don't want the government to step in unless a man wearing a dress is reading a book at the library. Then they want government to step in and tell that person they can't wear a dress at the library.
Crazy.
When you put things in these like really straightforward ways,
Yeah.
I'm always awestruck at the idiocy of them. I'm so immature that I have to get the government involved in a man wearing a dress at the library.
Yeah. Is it just me, or the first thing I think about is like, I want to talk to this person. It's like, I want to learn about some stuff. I don't think the opposite. I really don't. I'm like, man, this sounds
Yeah.
like an interesting person. I want to know about the journey and stuff. I don't, man, just my brain just thinks very differently about these things. Yeah.
I, um, I love going back to Portland and sitting in a place like Hawthorne. If people know Hawthorne, Portland, and they know Hawthorne, and they know there's a lot of nice restaurants and shops and things like that, and it's a very hip part of town. And so I love going there and just sitting there and seeing that I'm the square.
Yeah.
It's like as a straight man wearing, traditionally male oriented clothing, I am the one who sticks out. Everyone else
Yeah.
is wearing all kinds of
All
stuff
kinds of stuff. Yeah.
and, gender bending and all these kinds of things, all over the place, all around me. And it just amuses the heck out of me to go there and remember, um, how wonderful that is, and then come back here to Alabama, and people think I'm just some freaking weirdo. I'm like, you've obviously never seen a weirdo,
You've never been out of the state? I mean, where you been, man? You ever been to LA, man? Like,
I've had multiple people tell me recently, they used the same word, and I think you're gonna laugh at this. They said, fascinating. Like, you are just fascinating. I was like, I don't think I am actually. And I was laughing with Shannon about this. I said, I think they find some of the ideas that I present
mm,
fascinating, but I can't even take credit for most of those ideas. They're ideas that I've been reading about, studying about. Some of them I've come up with through study and things like that. But they're like influenced by all these other things around me. So I'm not interesting. The ideas are interesting. And what I want is to live in a world where if somebody thinks differently, that's our response.
yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. If somebody has a different idea that we haven't heard before, that's fascinating because
Right.
we don't have to have that idea judged on its moral, implications. And we don't have to push that idea as this is the way everybody has to live or believe or think. We
Right.
just, it's just an idea
It's just an
and it doesn't
idea.
hurt anybody. And the idea itself can't get hurt either.
Yeah.
It's ideas are benign until you try to use ideas to control other people.
Right. Kind of makes me think of too, like, you ever see like I'm sure you see in movies and stuff and pictures of, 1940s, 50s people, everybody is wearing like a suit or a big
Hmm.
coat. Like it just looks like a very the picture looks very drab usually and it doesn't look great, but everybody's wearing the same thing. There's no like flex for individuality, you know. And one of the things I like when I was at the airport not that long ago was like, obviously, and then there's me. I have blonde hair. I'm a black guy. I mean, I have
Yeah.
earrings, whole thing, lots of tattoos. And then I see other people have pink hair, gray hair, whatever. Purposely,
Hmm.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
they have purple hair and they're wearing, ripped up stuff. And I told my wife, I said, I really like this because think about it, like a society where people can express who they want to be. Now, obviously, there's limits with it. You can't just show up in pasties at an airport and stuff like that. I mean, it's like there's certain, I mean, if you want to, there may
It
be
makes
some
it easy for
consequences.
security.
Yeah, there's going to be some
You know?
consequences. You should know that. But I like the individuality of people's expression of themselves
Hmm.
for that. And I think I like living in a world like that where, because I would like the way I look now is how I always felt I should have looked. Always. Like
Mm.
even when I was a kid, I wanted to be like this. I just wasn't allowed the freedom to do that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
My parents would not, that was not happening. It was not going to happen.
Mm.
Military family, whole thing, not
Okay.
going to
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
happen. But how I look now, like I'm always thinking about how do I feel? Like, this feels natural to me. I remember the first time I put blonde in my hair, I was like, this feels like me. Feels
Mm.
like me. It's weird to feel like
Because you're
yourself.
having more fun.
I'm having more
Blondes
fun.
have more
Blondes
fun.
have more fun, man. It's
We
like
do.
I think I kind of like that with you. It's like every time I see you, I feel like you're always changing your look. Sometimes you look like Colonel
Yeah.
Sanders. Sometimes you look like, like sometimes you look like you're an astronaut. Next time you look like you're a
Yeah.
famous painter. Another time you look like you're like an academic. I was like, this guy always changing on me. It's like,
I feel like I'm just embracing bum recently because 'cause, you get busy and you're just
yeah,
like you stop choosing what you're going to wear. You
yeah,
just grab the first thing within arm's reach, and
yeah.
I haven't really cared if it's dirty or clean. I'm going to be honest with you. It's just kind of like, yeah, I can. I don't really get BO, so I'm lucky in that way. So I can wear things for a while.
Very revealing.
Uh, yeah. But yeah, I we should be celebrating that. What you were just talking
Yeah.
about. We should be celebrating that. And but what happens is, and this is an Abrahamic religious view. And, and
Yeah.
and when I say that, it's because I'm including Islam, I'm including Christianity, I'm including Judaism in this statement that the body is inherently evil, that we've inherited evil bodies because of the fall in the Garden of Eden.
Mm.
And that is behind why we're covering it up. That's behind why we're, why we can't just wear pasties to the airport.
Mhm.
Because when you really think about that in a reasonable way, it's like they're just a human being.
Yeah.
Why does it matter if they're wearing clothes or not? But it is this religiosity that informs us that it's bad. Um, I was just watching an interview, and I'm blanking on her name, but she's a refugee and she's currently living in Germany, and she had just written a book. It's not even in English yet, but it's about how I'm blanking on the exact title too. It's something about women aren't allowed to dream because in her Islamic society, she's not really a citizen, and so her book is about that, about living a life where you're dehumanized. After publishing the book, and now she's atheist, and she feels that she didn't even know that atheism was a thing
Mhm.
until she became, a refugee in Germany, and then she learned this new word, atheism, and she's like, "Oh, I don't have to be imprisoned by this religion. I can just stop
Right.
believing."
Right.
What an amazing freedom. Anyway, I'm just bringing it up because I had a terrible thought, but I thought it was an interesting one anyway. It's like, I actually respect Islam because at least they're honest.
Mm.
Christians try to lie to you all the time about how they're accepting and everything like that, but you're still going to hell when you die.
Right.
Islam has the guts to say, well, we're going to kill you now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right. Yeah, that's
It's a
interesting. Yeah.
terrible, horrible thing.
Right.
Don't misunderstand me. I am
Sure.
not pro this behavior. I'm just saying Christians. Uh, that is what's that is what's behind these. Jesus is a kick-ass guy now.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
mentality is like we want to go back to what's basically an Islamic state
Sure.
of powerful patriarchy. And if you write a book that is against our beliefs, I didn't get to this, but her own brother hired an assassin to go and murder her.
Jeez, man.
She is basically under witness protection by the government. And so you can't search for her, you can't find her, you can't
Yeah.
find where she's at or anything. She divulges that she's in Germany, but not what town
Sure.
and things like that. And she has to use like the service. What do you call it, like Shark or whatever, where
Oh,
you
okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
can't track her internet use and things like that. And
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, that's the world she's living in. That's the world that these conservatives who want a kick-ass Jesus who, you know, takes the power back. That's the world they want to live in.
Yeah.
They want that Islamic state here in America. They don't want to call it Islam. They want to call it Christianity.
Right.
But that's what they want.
Yeah. No, it's weird. I don't know. Just like I get, it's just strange. It's like, again, it's this kind of going backwards. This whole, listen, it's interesting marketing. If you look at it, it appeals to a population of people who want things to go back to what they were. I just wish they would be honest about it and say, what does that mean? And if I ask somebody, they go, well, you know what that means. That means the man is in charge of everything
Mhm.
and that women are beneath us and minorities are despicable. Like, just say it. Like, don't
It-
try to
it-
jump over a pew to get to me and tell me how amazing it is you're here. But on the side, they're like, there's a black dude here. Like, I'm not sure about this. It's like, that's kind of like, come on.
every time we video chat like this, I have that same thought. I'm like, there's a black dude here. What am I doing? What's going on?
I know. It's a pervasive thought amongst white people, apparently. It's like, it's a black guy
Um,
here. It's like,
Whenever we're done talking, I always check my pockets.
right, right. Exactly, right? There's a mentality like that, It's like,
No,
just
I
be
totally hear
honest.
you.
Like, I'd rather
Totally hear
you
you.
spit in my face than just lie to me about it, like,
Because it's a false Christianity.
yeah,
It's a Christianity that wishes Jesus would have picked up the stone and thrown it
that's
himself.
exactly right. Man, that's good. Simon, that was the biggest take, right? It's like, gotta use that, man. Gotta use that. That was unbelievable. They want him to. They want him to vengeance. I am vengeance. I am
Yeah.
power. That's what they want,
Yeah, and the early Christians, I think, they're still struggling with Jesus's core teachings,
Yeah.
and they're trying to figure it out, and a lot of people are either have never known, or most of us just kind of forget that Christianity has never been a united religion.
So true.
It's always we've always had factions, things like that. Even within the same sect of religion, I mean, just go look at the history of the Catholic Church
Yeah.
and how regionally different people in the Catholic Church thought differently. That's why we have the church in Ethiopia, things like that.
Yeah.
Where, um, I mean, there they think they think Pontius Pilate is a saint.
Right.
You know, so
Crazy.
so so there's just very different views of Christianity, and there just always has been. And what's normally called the Pauline Christianity is kind of what won out kind of mainstream.
Yeah.
Um, and so we reference Paul and all this stuff, but he was just kind of one guy, and most of his letters are arguing about what other Christians are
Yeah.
teaching.
That's right.
You know,
That's
so
exactly right.
so so it's really obvious from reading his letters that there is not a consensus. But Paul believes he is the
Right.
authority. Paul is not necessarily a really good authority. He claims he was a Pharisee, but he wasn't a very good Pharisee, or he doesn't understand didn't
No.
understand the life of a
No.
Pharisee very well. He misrepresents Judaism all over the place, which is a really fascinating thing because he is Jewish,
Right.
but maybe it wasn't a very good one. And you can probably say the same thing about Christianity. He's probably misrepresenting Jesus in a lot of
Yeah.
places and in a lot of times, but because his epistles made it into the Bible, it's unquestioned.
Yeah. It is. That's
Paul
exactly right.
said it, so it's true. It's like, well, Paul, by his own admission, was an a-hole.
Exactly.
And he didn't get along with most people.
Yeah.
So if that's your example for Christianity, an
Yeah.
a-hole who can't get along with his own fellow Christians, And that's not to say he's wrong about everything either. I think
Right.
he was very right about a lot of things, you know, and he had a lot of good ideas. But just like with every other human being, Paul's a mixed bag.
That's right.
And the Bible is a mixed bag. The New Testament's a real mixed bag. The Old Testament's a mixed bag. And so we just have to come to terms with that. And bringing that back, a messianic figure is a mixed bag.
Mm.
Superman is one of my favorite fictional characters of all time. I I think I like one movie with Superman in it,
Right.
like theatrical, and that's the original with Christopher Reeve.
Right.
I think that's the only Superman movie I can actually watch all the way through and
Yeah.
enjoy. There's a couple animated ones that are pretty good, but Superman is so problematic to make an interesting story out of. And that's what I think is the problem that I have with most of these movies that deal. And what brought it up was Dune.
Yeah.
I,
Oh
I had
yeah.
finally,
Paul
I had
Atreides.
finally, yeah, I
Yeah.
had finally gotten around to watching the newest one. And
Yeah. We talked a little bit about it. It was kind of just quiet and it was kind of
yeah,
monotone. Yeah.
yeah, and it was like
Yeah.
there are
Yeah.
definitely things I liked about it, definitely.
Yeah.
But we talked about it last time about the
Yeah.
contrast and everything. I just
Yeah.
felt like the movie needed
Yeah.
more contrast,
Yeah.
instead of just being brown. It's a
Right.
very brown
Right. It
movie
was a very
in
brown
tone
movie.
and in
Yeah.
visual,
Very beige brown.
Yeah,
Yeah. It could have been
exactly.
Vegas, honestly.
Yeah,
It's outside of the strip, but it
yeah,
was another kind of messianic figure, this religion essentially that rises up
yep.
out of this whole deal and and essentially almost a cult, honestly, out of it.
Oh yeah, it's very, i- if you it has very direct parallels to Old Testament. The Israelites were a nomadic people, and the cities are always condemned for being evil, and the righteous way is to go live out in the wilderness,
Right.
and that's God's people.
Yeah.
And we still have those kind of pervasive ideas today.
Yeah.
If you talk to conservative people, they like small towns where it's at the big city's evil, blah blah blah, country, that's the real America, middle America, that's
Yeah.
et cetera, on and on and on. And Dune just takes that and runs with it. It's a
Yeah.
very, very, very similar. Um, it goes to show that, there's even though Dune is a very unique story in a lot of ways, a very unique set of stories, I guess I should say. I don't
Yeah.
know how many books are in that
And they're
series, but
huge books, man. Frank
yeah,
Herbert's Dune. They're
yeah.
crazy, man.
So
The planet Arrakis is essentially the wilderness. The Fremen are the people living out there.
yeah,
There's so many parallels, and Paul Atreides rising to become essentially the one. He is
yeah,
the Kwisatz Haderach. He can see the future. He can do all. He has all these He comes into all these supernatural powers. It's whoever controls the spice controls
yeah.
the universe. It literally the parallels are hilarious. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah. And so but it's remarkable how unique Dune is.
yeah,
And it's remarkable how unique, the Dune from the 80s is from the Dune that we have now.
yeah,
And, you know, in most modern remakes, there's a push toward realism, quote
yeah,
unquote real. I love it
yeah,
when we talk
yeah,
about
yeah,
realism in sci-fi,
yeah,
right? But,
yeah. It's sci-fi.
but there's a push to try and make the characters feel more
Yeah,
real and what normally happens though is um it just kind of makes things a little more boring,
yeah.
and I don't know why realism has to make things
I don't
dark
know.
and boring.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
I live in the real world. My real world is not dark and boring, and you know I
Unless they're
just
covering you with your plays and stuff. Very,
yeah.
very dark. Not boring, but definitely very confrontational. It's like,
But life is just full of color and
yeah,
wonder
it's true.
and everything, and I always just want a movie that's claiming to be real to also be colorful and vibrant
Yeah,
and to be able to say that's realism.
yeah, Yeah, it's
You
very
know.
interesting. I think all of these, the Dune thing caught me. I was like, oh yeah, he's right about Dune. This is another super recent thing that, I mean, it's been around for a long time. But I don't know that we'll ever not stop telling those types of stories. I feel like we
It's
almost
too
crave
ingrained
that.
in
Yeah, it's
us.
ingrained. It's very
Yeah.
deeply woven into what it means to be us.
Yeah.
That someone will rise. Now, interesting enough, I wonder if that over time will embed itself as a different version, not just a dude who be's the one. That
Oh,
this will
yeah.
be like a woman who becomes the one or someone else, like that would be actually pretty interesting to me, I would think.
Yeah, and um seeing the world from, a different, but I feel like we're kind of getting some of those movies right now
Hmm.
and they're not good. And it's not the fault of the
Yeah.
premise. It's the fault of I guess we just don't know what to do with it yet.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about this, the parallel between Luke Skywalker and Rey.
Hmm.
Luke Skywalker starts out, can't do anything,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, he's useless in most regards. He's brave and
Yeah.
impetuous, but more or less useless. Rey is good at everything, blah blah blah.
Sure.
You know, I mean, in her first, I mean, in Luke Skywalker's first confrontation with Darth Vader, he gets his hand cut off.
Right.
Darth Vader would have easily killed him if he
Of
had wanted
course.
to. If that
Of
had been
course.
his goal, he would have killed Luke in a matter of
Oh, of
seconds.
course.
Uh, Rey wins her first fight with Kylo Ren, and he's out for blood, and so it's just like, so it's not the idea of a woman, a female hero, the one or whatever, that's not the problem. The problem is in the storytelling, and I don't know
Yeah.
how to tell people how to tell better stories. I mean, I feel like the world in general is telling Hollywood we want better stories
Sure.
because Hollywood's losing billions of dollars hand over fist
For sure.
because people just aren't going to these
Yeah.
movies. And
Yeah.
people talk about superhero fatigue and stuff like that. I don't think that's it. I think it's
I
story.
agree. I think it's totally story. Okay, here's a great example. Is I was watching some streaming the other night and I saw a commercial for the newest Expendables movie.
Oh
And
gosh.
I said, "Oh my gosh, this looks so bad. This literally looks like a money grab play." And it's just like this is the problem. Like we're telling these ridiculous stories, like just horrible. And it's like you get the same players and they go, "Well, it's Slash. It could just make a movie.
Yeah.
We're just gonna make a movie." And
Yeah.
is it good or not? Is that really that important? It's like
Do
it's
things
not a
blow up?
problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there are a lot. How many things blow up? Not real blow ups, like CGI.
Yeah, just
Like,
CGI. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I know, Simon. I know this
Yeah.
is a whole thing. It's like well, how
Yeah.
many people are killed, and how many? What's the kill total? It's like, man, I just there's the storytelling's just putrid, horrible.
It is, and so much of it is, um I just don't know where. I'm not saying make the same thing over and over again,
Yeah.
obviously. I'm just saying make things of a similar quality.
Yeah.
You know, tell a different story, involve, obviously, but because you can make an Expendables that, um, I mean, we had, you know, I mean, Expendables is basically based on the Magnificent Seven, which is
Of
based on the
course.
Seven Samurai. I mean, these were good movies.
Yeah.
The source material that you're drawing from, the premise that you're, the one of the big problems with the Expendables is that they don't have the guts to kill anybody of their main characters. Like, in the
Right.
Seven Samurai and in the Magnificent Seven and things like that, most everybody's dead by the end.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. They got to keep
and you,
bringing them back for the sequels and stuff.
yeah.
Come on,
So
Simon.
to your
Like,
point about the money grab,
yeah,
I saw 50 Cent was in this one, and I was like, well, I
so
guess, I
bad.
mean, nothing against 50 Cent. As a, what
I
I
mean,
know
Megan
so very
Fox is in it.
little uh,
Are you serious?
yeah, I'm just like, I mean, and that's the kind of thing where I'm just like, obviously, it seems like people aren't interested in being in these movies anymore.
No.
I think Sly was able to get some people in on the first couple and
Yeah.
be like, "Hey, come on, we're gonna make a buttload of cash, and we're gonna, But the idea of the first Expendables, I was okay with because it was just about like getting a bunch of old action
Yeah,
stars
yeah.
together, and
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I mean, have fun, but that's kind of a one-time deal.
It's a one-time deal, and it's a reboot, but of a kind of a time period of the guys who got older
Yeah.
versus just like all this ridiculous rebooting of stuff. It's like I was just on a podcast, and I was telling them about our whole thing because it's called Retro Made. It's all about the '80s, all about the
Oh,
'80s and
okay.
movies,
Yeah.
and we were reviewing Red Dawn. I
Oh,
said,
yeah.
"Oh, Red Dawn's great. The remake's disgustingly bad." And I was like, "It's just so bad. It's
It's really
so bad."
funny because like the original Red Dawn should not be good.
Right. I know.
It just shouldn't.
It shouldn't be good. And you think, oh, it's Charlie Sheen, Patrick Swayze. This is Charlie Sheen's first movie, like his first
Yeah.
movie.
And just the premise of it.
The premise
You'd
sounds
be like,
ridiculous. You know, it's like,
yeah, it's like,
like
no, this is not going to be a good movie.
right.
And the remake proves that yeah, this premise is really
Yeah,
stupid and it
exactly.
is a bad movie. But so it's a miracle that the first one is even watchable, let
Yeah,
alone good.
exactly. And some actually really strong performances in there. And they were actually cold in that movie. We were talking about how like reading about it, how like it was so cold. The actors were struggling on the set.
Mm.
Right. I mean, it's like that these things like there was like a serious amount of effort put into that film. But
That's
when you
that's
see
Empire Strikes Back. Those were
right,
actual blizzard conditions that
that's
they
what
were
I'm
filming
saying.
in Mark Hamill had to endure to film
Right,
his scenes.
right. That's it.
And if you can do that in an easier way, I'm not saying I'm against that,
Right.
but it also still has to be convincing.
Right, because the viewer knows when a crocodile is swimming in the ocean, it looks so fake underneath a
Yeah.
boat, and you're like, "Come on, man! I mean, you
Yeah.
couldn't gone to Louisiana or something, like, like,
Yeah, just grab some real footage. I mean,
come on, like,
movies do that all the time, where or at
yeah,
least they used to, where you would just take you just have your second, third, fourth
yeah,
camera crew team or whatever.
right.
They're collecting all that B-roll
That's
that you're
exactly
going to
right.
use. You don't need to get the CGI later. For me, a lot of that is it has to be that they thought of it later.
Right, right.
And then they were just like, well, just CGI it. And I'm just like, well, that's just a bad idea. That's just
Yeah,
a bad to not know what you're doing. I think there are shows and movies that use a lot of CGI, but they knew what they were doing from the get-go and it shows.
yeah,
And then and because they knew what they were doing from the get-go, they were able to use a lot of practical things and then enhance it with CGI.
right.
And then there are things I think where it's like we know generally what's going to happen, but we'll
Yeah,
just fill in the blanks with the CGI later.
right.
And
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's really obvious too.
It is pretty
Really
obvious.
obvious.
Yeah, you're like, whoa, this is bad. Like, it's just, and I am so affected by your commentary about this now that whenever I see this in a movie, I'm just,
Yeah.
Simon was talking about this. This is really bad, actually. It's like really, really bad. Like, I can't take this movie seriously. When it starts doing that, it starts dropping my interest completely, like
And that's
immediately.
how I feel about messianic characters for the
Yeah,
most part. When it's like nobody else could do this, this person is the only one who can. I'm just like, I just don't believe that.
yeah,
I just don't.
yeah,
Um, I, I want to believe in a Jesus who didn't have to be the one. He just was because of the choices he made.
mm,
Not because somebody else made a choice for him to be the Messiah,
yeah,
but because he made the choice. That's a totally different thing, isn't it?
yeah, for sure.
And that's one of the things that Star Wars could have been so amazing. And the original trilogy is. But when they did the prequels, the guy who's supposed to be the one but falls and
Yeah.
isn't, and then he has to be redeemed by his son. And then he ends up being the one because he destroys, he kills the emperor.
Yeah.
And then of course, I mean, I didn't even watch the last Star Wars movie that they made, The Rise of
Mm-hmm.
Skywalker, did they call it that?
Yeah, yeah. I watched it. I wasn't that
They
into it, I'll be
brought
honest
they
with you.
brought back Palpatine,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
completely
yes.
undoes
I know.
what Darth Vader did and
I
him being the one. And I'm just like, this is what we were talking about. This is how creatively bankrupt these people are. This
it's
is how
true.
bankrupt their storytelling is. And it's the most frustrating thing to me.
Yeah, it's pretty bad stuff. It's very frustrating. That's why I think like you have to like really search for this stuff now. I'll give you a great example. So I stumbled upon this show, The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart, on Amazon Prime.
Hmm.
It's one of the best series I think I've ever watched.
Oh,
Sigourney Weaver
I'm gonna
is
check it
the
out.
you got to check it out. Sigourney Weaver is the lead character, and actually I thought of you during this when I was
She's
watching
a
it.
gem.
Oh,
She's an absolute gem. Sigourney Weaver is one of my favorite actors.
she's so good in this, Simon. And I think what you'll appreciate without giving away just the dialogue, which I know you love,
Yeah.
and how beautifully shot it is. Like you
Mm.
feel like they put so much love into the cinematography of this. Like it's just so beautiful. And I remember
Yeah.
like it pulls you in, just the beauty, the soundtrack, perfect for the like. It's like
Mm.
I told my wife, I said, it's the music, it's the acting, it's the scenery, it's the storytelling. I was like, it's this may not this is like the perfect show almost, literally,
Mm.
based off of all those parameters. Like these people really, this was a labor of love completely.
I
They
see.
You got to
I
see it. I'm
love that.
telling you, man. It pulled me in quickly, and I was like, where is this going? And just the storytelling and just the symbolism and the whole thing with flowers as a language was so beautiful and different, I thought, as well. Telling you, I'd be surprised if you don't like this. I'll be like, well, I was wrong about this. I'll be shocked if you don't like this. If you like Midnight Mass and you like storytelling, we both love that series. It's very similar in the storytelling, the pacing, but a much more beautifully shot movie than a show than Midnight Mass, which is
Mm.
saying a lot because that was very well done.
That was a
Yeah.
good, yeah, that was really well done.
Yeah, yeah, and just really well done. I had to pump it up. I was like, I have to tell Simon about this. This is right up your alley, man. Yeah.
Did we talk about this that I didn't realize it while watching the show. I only realized it later that the father of the ex-con, who comes home to the island in
Mm,
Midnight Mass,
yeah.
that's Elliot from E.T.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I knew who that was. Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
He's a beat up looking dude now, man. With that
I
thing.
well, I think when he's cleaned up, he's
Yeah.
he was trying to look like a
Yeah, he
fisherman
looked
there,
haggardly in there. He's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I definitely recognized him. I was like, oh, there you go. Yeah.
I didn't know that, and I saw his name on the credits for it or something like that, and I was like, wait a minute, isn't
Oh
that?
yeah.
I was like, oh,
And good for him for all these years,
yeah,
still acting and relevantly acting, like
what a great actor.
yes,
What a great actor.
most
I
definitely.
mean, go back to E.T. and you can see that he had a gift from a
Yeah,
very early age,
most definitely.
and um, surprised he hasn't been more like a Leonardo DiCaprio, but
Yeah.
maybe he didn't have the boyish good looks, or maybe just
Maybe.
he wasn't chosen by Martin Scorsese. I don't know.
Right. I actually, it was funny you mentioned that because I just rewatched Wolf of Wall Street again.
Oh,
And I
okay.
was like, Leo was crazy in that movie. He's so crazy.
Hmm.
like he loses his mind in that role. I was like, this it's just crazy.
They've teamed up for a new one. It's also got flowers in the title. What's it called?
Oh,
Killing
interesting.
of the Flowers
Hmm.
of
I think I know
something.
what you're talking about. I just haven't seen it, but
Yeah, I
yeah.
just saw a preview for it and it looks really, really
Well,
good.
it's chemistry,
Really
right?
good.
If you're like, I think good actors enjoy working with directors that they vibe with, that get them and they sync with, it's kind of like I'm not doing this with anybody else. I'm just not.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like it's you got to have chemistry together. And I think that's one of the biggest overlooked things in success is like, where's the chemistry between director, the studio, and the actors? And is there a vision for this? Like, I think these guys, I think they've been in at least 5 movies they've done together.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's something about that chemistry is really like strong. You see this in some other director, James Cameron working with a
Yeah.
couple of different people regularly.
I don't know much. Honestly, I don't know much about Martin Scorsese aside from his
Yeah,
work.
yeah,
But to me, he just seems like a director who loves actors
yeah,
because if you watch his movies, you don't get like the editing and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't distract from the actors' performances, and I
yeah,
think that is the key thing because in so many lesser directors, either they don't maybe understand actors or maybe they whatever, but their cuts and their editing, and just the way that they tell a
yeah,
story or whatever, that doesn't depend necessarily on the actors' performances as much as it does the stylization of of the movie. I mean, you could look at something like a really obvious example, such something like a Fast and Furious,
yeah,
kind of a thing,
yeah,
where it's like, plug anybody into these roles. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
yeah. Oh, it's
You
like
could
a
say,
Michael Bay movie, just blowing shit up, man. It's like just
yeah, yeah,
throw in some people,
just throw anybody into these
Yeah,
roles. It does, the characters just don't matter at all,
yeah,
you know. But Martin Scorsese, he just, to me, he's just somebody who really loves actors. I think Clint Eastwood is like that too.
yeah,
Where he
yeah,
he doesn't he's not trying to do crazy fancy film editing. Like he's filming actors. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. That's a great point. You know what? I'm gonna give you some credit. You've been really on point today. Okay, it started off shaky with the take that I have opinions. I was like, I'm not sure where this is going today. Maybe Simon's a little rusty. I don't like. You really brought it home, though, man.
Well,
Lots
I
of
was just
famous
I,
takes here.
I said that at the beginning so I could preface the rest of it. It's like I have opinions
Oh,
and here
okay.
they come, baby.
Here they come. Yes. Okay. Now that you put it that way, it sounds more impressive. Well, we're at that time, and man, I've missed doing this, but man, Simon, you're the man. Seriously, man. This is
You too. I've really missed this as
me
well.
too,
I
man.
needed
This is
this too, by the way. This
That's
was
good.
some really good um therapy for me.
That's awesome, man. It's like an important part of my life. It really is. And it's just regardless of the people listening. Actually, it's funny. I never think about people like people tell me they're listening and oh yeah, because the 80s lady, she was like, "Oh, I love your show, The Arbiters." I was like, "Oh, that's
Oh,
cool.
great.
You guys talked about Revenge of the Nerds. I love that movie." I was like, "Oh yeah, weird. That was a whole funny episode." Yeah, it's like but I always just feel like, we're just talking. We're not thinking about the larger scope of things. Just we're having a
I,
good
I
time with each other.
I just assume people turn me off
God.
when they hear me. I just assume that they just push stop. So I just assume it's just you and I
Oh,
talking.
okay. Oh, well, this is not creepy Simon on subways and stuff playing a clown. That episode got me. It was like, well, of course I lied. I mean, it made it more interesting. I was like, wow, this is a different guy.
I just told a shortened version of that story to somebody recently, and this is somebody who just is getting to know me,
Yeah.
and so anyway, they weren't even looking at me; they were staring in a different direction, and they were just like, "I guess I'm not surprised by this, but what the hell, man? What the hell? What do you think?"
Genius. I think genius. There's no, you can't say any other words. Just
Like to
genius.
tell people, thought has nothing to do with it.
Just pure right in there. Like,
Thinking just gets in my way.
thinking gets in the way of scary clowns on subways or whatever. Public transportation, Simon. If I saw you coming towards me, I'd be like, I'm not talking to that guy.
No, no, I wouldn't talk to me either. And that's
Gonna,
me, just normal,
that's just normal, Simon.
Yeah.
Yes, we're in the bum
Not even
phase.
clown Simon, just
No, no, we're in bum phase dressing right now for
yeah.
Simon. Next time, a couple weeks from now, we never know. It could be some avant-garde situation.
Well,
Period piece.
the weather's cooling down, so maybe I'll start wearing some more interesting clothes, but
I'm not wearing a hoodie for once. All right. Like,
that's right. That's
I was
right.
in a hoodie stage for a while on these things.
And that's why I kept checking my pockets. I was like, a black man in a hoodie. I don't.
Oh wow. I might have to take back these compliments. All right. Look at the joy he has saying that. Way too much joy in that comment. It's like
Like, I think he enjoys being racist too
a
much
little
to
too
not be
much. I can take
racist.
a joke, but listen. Simon, you're the man. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. Seriously.
Thank you, brother.
All right,
Man,
man.
always wonderful.
You got it. Later, man.
See.